This is weird. I'm going to try to go out and come back in because all I can hear is Kerry.
Okay.
That's all you need. That's all you really need to hear, but yeah, you might want to fix it.
Today's podcast was very fun, and we hope you join us next time to ask questions and be a part of it on YouTube Live. We had 50 viewers at one point, so thanks everyone that tuned in. This week is Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and we're getting more folks lined up to be on the show. It also means a huge dent in our credit card for hot new bourbon releases hitting the market. But as always, remember to support the show on Patreon. That's patreon.com/bourbonpursuit. Samples and koozies have been shipped out, and we'll do a giveaway next week since this week has been so crazy. As I'd mentioned, this was a fun time on YouTube Live, so I'll throw in one more blooper before we start the show.
I think there is a bourbon boner out there. I swear I've seen that.
I've seen that name before too.
There is now. Yeah, because I told my buddy that was the reason for just the R, and he screenshotted me that guy's Instagram, or I think he commented or something that said, "Is this the real bourboner? Should I tell him that?"
Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Pursuit Podcast. Kenny here tonight. Ryan can't make it, but I am joined by a group of fellas here, and this is actually a really awesome thing that we're doing here. So this is the first ever Bourbon Community Roundtable. It was an idea I had just because I wanted to be able to get a lot of people together to kind of like share and bounce ideas off each other, but at the same exact time, I've had a lot of other people say, like, you know, we can be guests on the show. Like, I can just come in and talk about what's bourbon like in Iowa and stuff like that. And not to say that's not a bad idea, but I figured, well, let's try to give a lot of people a voice. And so this is actually being broadcasted on YouTube Live right now. We are creeping up to about 30 viewers, and it's a way that we are going to be able to do this live, ask questions to the audience, and be able to get their answers while we're discussing it. But before I ramble on anymore, I want my guests to come on and kind of talk about themselves a little bit. So I'll pass it to the person that's on my far right here, Nick from Breaking Bourbon. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, everyone. My name is Nick from BreakingBourbon.com. I am one of three creators and writers. The other two guys, Jordan and Eric, are hopefully going to be rotating through these podcasts as we hopefully do these in the future. You can find us at BreakingBourbon.com, release calendar, and articles and reviews and all that good stuff. So thank you for having us.
Kerry, you're up.
Hey, everyone. I'm Kerry. I run Suburbia.com, SUBOURBIA. On Twitter, I'm at Bourbon Gamer, Bourbon_Gamer. Probably the newer member of the blog group here in this podcast, but been trying to write about everything and talk about everything, so glad to join you on the second one here.
Great. And we're going to wrap it up here with Blake.
I'm Blake. I run Bourboner.com. It's bourbon with an R on the end. A lot of reviews, a lot of limited edition talk. You may have seen the Pappy release maps. That's kind of what got Bourboner kicked off. So, yeah, that's it.
And then you've got your own Facebook group. Like, you got this massive following.
Yeah,
You're
trying to get every social media, so you can't escape Bourboner in the bourbon social media world.
He's kind of a big deal.
He really is. That kind of brings us into our first topic, and we were kind of chatting about this before we actually started the recording. But and I'm going to pose this as a question to our viewers as well, and feel free to type your answers. But what is the best way to kind of consume a lot of the information that is coming in regards of information for bourbon? And because all of us right here sitting on this panel, or whatever you want to call us right now, this roundtable, we have multiple ways that we try to connect with the people that follow us, right? Whether it's doing this right now, like a YouTube live broadcast, so people are actually being a part of something. It could be just Twitter through actual personal engagement. Blake runs a massive Facebook group that's got hundreds and hundreds of people in it and allows people to share and, you know, push information out there. You guys all run blogs. And then, of course, there's always Instagram. So, Nick, I'll kind of ask you, you know, where do you think you have the most kind of like followers that are kind of tracking and getting the most information from you?
It kind of break it down, you know, the three areas that we're on are Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and they're very, very different communities on each of those Instagram, definitely the fastest growing. It's very easy to put something out there and reach a lot of people, especially with the stories they have now. Those typically get in the thousands of views, even though they're up for 24 hours. But then over on Twitter, I think you have a different conversation going on than you do on Instagram. I find that on Twitter, you're going to find people in the industry, a little more obviously in the industry, who are more involved. Some of the distillers are over there, a lot of people with the blogs and the writers, they're easier to communicate with, I think, that you don't always have on Instagram. And then finally on Facebook, the tricky part about Facebook is, unless it, when you post something, at least when we post it to our Breaking Bourbon page, if it doesn't get shared and liked, very rapidly, with the first few times it's seeded out there, that it kind of gets killed by Facebook. They want to see you pay money to get the message out there. But, some things like the release calendar, for example, we'll see that get shared, quite a bit over on Facebook.
And do you think, and I'll pose this over to you, Kerry, do you think it's like organically, like sharing something on Facebook gets a lot more views than something that you just share on Twitter? Because I know we all have our own Facebook pages, and unless people are following us, that's the only way that they can actually get that information, unless we pay Facebook to boost that information.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I don't think that for Suburbia itself, I don't think Facebook is our main communication platform. I was born and raised on Twitter when I started doing all of this, and a little bit on Reddit, a little bit on Facebook, but really Twitter was my main platform. But nowadays it seems like the distilleries are not as active on Twitter as they were when I started, and you find them a lot more on Facebook. So, I guess Facebook kind of branches out to not just the bourbon fans, but friends of mine or other people in the area that are interested who may not be on Twitter. Whereas Twitter, I think nowadays the people who are still around are some pretty hardcore bourbon fans that started a while ago and are still on Twitter. So I think it's kind of a mixed platform. And then there's people who have a lot of success on Instagram that I'm not even really that big on. I know a buddy of mine who, I'll have to find his name on here, but he just started maybe 6 months ago, and he's got over 10,000 followers on Instagram, posting bourbon pictures. So
wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So that's actually one community I even forgot about. And Blake, we'll move over here because I know you have a love-hate relationship with the folks over at Reddit too, right? Because sometimes they'll call you an asshole or an idiot, and then sometimes they'll give you praise.
I think I get that with just about any social media outlet, and it's a different crowd. I think just with, Instagram and that kind of stuff, people are just looking for post bottles. Reddit, you definitely dig a lot deeper, and that's kind of a community. I think I've been in there for like 4 years now, maybe a little under that. But there's a lot of like in-depth discussion, so you can get a lot of great information out of there. And it's not just, hey, I'm going to throw up a bottle of what I bought today, or hey, look at this fine. So it's all what you're trying to do. I still read Reddit every day, and I still look at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook every day as well. But they all kind of have their own little crowds that follow them and their own kind of niches for bourbon information that goes in each of them. So it's fun to kind of get into each of them, and you meet a lot of cool people in the bourbon world, and you never know where I've met a lot of people through Reddit that I've met for tastings, or they've helped me find a bottle and stuff. Which seems like there's less and less of that day, but try to at least get my foot in every bourbon arena there is right now.
So another question I'll pose to you, Blake, because anybody that's been around bourbon for a while knows about Facebook and everything that happens within the groups that we don't talk about. But you started your own group that is a completely like wide open thing. But you also have like your own like forum community. So what was the idea of having kind of like 2 different communities, and why have you kind of switched over to the Facebook route?
Yeah, it just seems like people talk more on Facebook. I don't know if it's just because they're opening it up all the time anyway to, see what their cousin's ski trip looked like or whatever it is, but they're going to be in Facebook. And so just a lot more people, I really tried to push a forum on the Bourboner site for a long time, and it just never seemed to get any real traction. And then opened up a Facebook group, and like 1,500 people joined in a month, and they're always posting pictures and talking and that kind of stuff. So it just seems like a much more organic way for a conversation to happen within the Facebook platform. And Facebook's holdback is if you're trying to buy, sell, trade, you may get shut down, which we kind of limit that. So.
Right. I think if I had to guess, I think Bourboner is going to be it's called the gateway drug of the Facebook bourbon empire.
He reported it 7 times and it's still there. I'm trying to get it shut down.
They said, "Hey, Kerry, again, he just reported another post."
It just keeps reporting. It just won't get down. But I agree with you. I think that Facebook and Reddit are the places to go if you want to have a long, detailed discussion about stuff. And Twitter and Instagram are the places where you don't want to have a long talk. You just want to show something that you bought that day, or you want to talk about, maybe something you tried and you want to review it in less than 165 characters. And, other people kind of hop on there. I think it's more, each has its own place when it comes to social media.
Yeah, you're limited when it comes to Twitter if you want to get into an in-depth discussion and that kind of stuff, because the characters, especially if you want multiple people in on the conversation. And then same with Instagram, how much conversation can really happen in a comment of a picture. Reddit and Facebook seem to be the best place for that. You get a lot more just, hey, when's it coming out? You get a lot more detailed of how a distillery works and, what makes Buffalo Trace different from Old Forester. And
there's places for both of it. There's places where it's necessary to dive into stuff. And then I think Twitter fits, for me, a lot of the stuff that I talk about. I can talk about pretty quickly on it. So Twitter's a good platform for it. But, Facebook's also a huge arena as well.
Yeah, I think I'm almost long-winded, so I need a more than 140 characters to put answers out there.
Yeah, I'd almost argue that on Twitter, I think you have a lot of people that are watching as well and not participating per se, whereas in Facebook and Reddit, folks that participate a lot, and aren't necessarily afraid to, or not afraid to, but they share their opinions and so forth on those platforms.
I think the one thing that I really like about the Instagram platform and sharing bourbon is that and I was really surprised by this, because sometimes, we'd be drinking a bottle of bourbon or whatever it is, and we'd share it on there, and you might get 1 or 2 replies like, awesome bottle, like I can't find that, and then maybe a like or 6 or whatever. But you post it on Instagram, and then all of a sudden you've got like 7 comments and 160 likes. And I found it really amazing that that's a much more engaging platform. I guess this is the one thing that really strikes me that is really surprising, is that when I post a picture on Instagram, it's literally like within 30 seconds I get my first like. And I thought that was really impressive, that people are like that in tune with Instagram, that they're constantly sitting there checking it, or maybe it's just the right time or whatever it is. So we'll go ahead and we'll kind of move into a next topic. Somebody bourbon fanboy just said, you go to Instagram for the best bourbon porn. So that's
very true.
That makes sense. Because there's definitely some rare bourbon people that are on there, and they have great stories behind it. So it's actually pretty awesome. And then Chris actually just asked a question. They said, how much traffic comes from social versus people just coming to your homepage?
That's a good question.
And I'll go ahead and kind of take this one a little bit, because, at least for us, just having a podcast, a lot of the things that we do, we are actually just pushing it on Twitter and Facebook, but nobody's really listening to it on the homepage. It's kind of like their initial, I guess you could say, like piece of crack, right? Until they get addicted to the show, and then they sign up for iTunes, and then that's just their mechanism of how they continue to consume the show. So I'll post the question to you guys. What do you guys think about that?
When we started out, about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, no one knew who we were. And, so you start posting links and so forth on social media just because it's kind of the only place you have, the stuff is there, but no one's finding it yet by Google search, and no one's got it bookmarked or anything. And I think it's the introduction for a lot of people, it's somehow introduced to it through it being shared, to them, either by following directly or shared by a friend, or then, shared by somebody else, maybe even on social media. And then that has kind of transitioned into, most folks, at least for Breaking Bourbon, coming in organically and directly at this point.
I would say a majority of the traffic that I get just comes from wherever I post it. So I'll send, usually when I post a new blog article, it'll copy to Twitter and to Facebook. And I think the Facebook is starting to grow more than Twitter has. I've been on Twitter for 2 years now, and the rate of followers, you definitely kind of see that starts to slow down. Whereas, if just in a random day, I'll get 5 or 6 people that like my page, Suburbia, on Facebook. So I definitely think there's a trend where people are moving over or moving away from Twitter, but there's still a hardcore Twitter base too that is still around.
We all can't be Blake.
Yeah, I know.
I looked. It was actually lower than I thought it was going to be. It's only about 7% comes from social media, but I think a lot of that is, my biggest thing is email subscribers. So I think if you clicked on the link in the email, you're not going to go then and click on it from Twitter, Facebook, wherever, because I usually send the email out and then an hour or two later post it to social media. But definitely kind of back to the Reddit point, that was where I started posting anything. I don't even think I posted to Twitter initially. I just posted in Reddit because that was where I was. So social media it's a big part of it, like keeping the discussion going as well. I think that's a big thing. You post an article and then people start talking about it. And I think it's just a great way to keep the discussion going about whatever you're posting about.
Yeah, and just a word of advice to any other bloggers out there. And even these bloggers have taken kind of a key to this of how you get continual traffic is to make those articles that are going to keep people coming. Every single year when I know Pappy release season's coming, I'm going to have to go and check Blake's site to figure out which week it was the past prior 2 years, or it's a Weller from Blake's site, right? So some of those articles are the ones that you just have continual traffic, and you have to have those kind of articles to keep people engaged. But let's go ahead and move on to the next topic, and I'll put this out to the our viewers out there. What's the most random trade that you've seen of all time? And I'll kind of go first because I saw this happening on one of the forums probably. I don't know, when Pokemon Go just started, because they were trying to trade Pokemon cards for bourbon. And it was so funny because I remember commenting and being like, because he actually was trading, he wanted to get Pokemon cards for his son. And he was like, well, I'll just trade bourbon and try to get these rare ones that, people have been hoarding for the past 10 years. And I remember I said, well, if your son ever gets into Pogs, let me know. I've got a collection somewhere. So, I'll throw it out to you guys, and feel free to speak up, whoever wants. What's the craziest trade you think you've ever seen?
I saw a car. It was a '67 Chevy, I think. Somebody wanted to trade for $35,000 worth of bourbon, and he was serious. I know the guy. He actually lives in Atlanta. I'm not really serious, but I think if somebody had thrown out some big time bottles towards him, like he kept saying, multiples of A.H. Hirsch and Pappy 23 and this and that, and yeah, he wanted to trade a car for bourbon.
I can imagine going down to the DMV and filling out the paperwork for that. Like, do you put a value on it at that point, or do you have to pay sales tax?
To be paying with PayPal today.
Yeah.
So somebody just said that they traded bourbon for IT services and web design, which isn't bad, right?
I've traded bourbon for tax services, so I was like, I could do your tax return for you. Or you could just give me a bottle if you don't.
I actually, this year, I traded my landscaper. I took instead of having to pay him the full amount, we traded part of his labor for bourbon, right? So it was a way that I got rid of some old Rip Van Winkles and some other things like Barrel Proof, E.H. Taylor, and some other things that he really wanted. So I was like, yeah, sure, we can do that.
It's its own currency at this point. Why not, And for the guy who's trading the bourbon, it may be a great deal because, you may have just traded something you spent $100 and you're now getting like a $400 credit on your lawn service. So.
Mm-hmm.
This happened locally here. Well, it didn't happen, but it was offered. But at a local retailer who we know, a customer offered sex in return for bourbon.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, hope that wasn't on like Craigslist or Backpage or something like that. It's gonna get caught pretty quick.
He didn't take the offer, but the bottle did go missing a week later. So.
I'm looking for a bourbon called Old Blowhard.
Old Blowhard, yeah. Somebody else said that they also traded lacrosse gear for bourbon. They actually, they sell it on Reddit that somebody traded lacrosse gear for bourbon. So
Reddit does the weird stuff. They do a lot of weird trades. They encourage it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth it, right? I mean, if you have something of value, and as Blake said, if you have something that you bought for $100 that's now worth $400, yeah, you're getting basically $300 of stuff for free. Yeah. So it's definitely a good way to look at it.
It's all a commodity, right? It's a trading commodity for a lot of people. So it's got a value behind it. The value is not concrete. I mean, it's not like a commodity like gold or something, but it's probably more valuable than gold right now to some people.
Yeah, I was gonna say per ounce. Are we higher on?
Yeah, possibly. But it's a trading commodity. It's an investment for some people. Now, we hate that it is, because as you can see by this tower behind me, bourbon and whiskey is meant for drinking. But for some people, it's just a long-term investment.
Yeah, for a lot of people, that's kind of what it's turned into, right? Is a rush to get these things and then kind of just sit on them, which sucks to a point, but it has real in that market for hours. So I don't want to dive into that. Somebody said, if trading for childcare, wait until after the services are rendered. And then another person, Whiskey Zealot, just said, I pay my friends in beer and whiskey for helping with home improvement projects on the regular, which...
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't, though? Yeah, you come over and help me with this. Help me put in this light bulb. I got a 6-pack. We can split.
Yeah, Kerry, if you need help changing a light bulb, you need to quit collecting bourbon.
If anyone's in Atlanta, Kerry's got a light bulb to change.
Yeah, I've got a couple actually down here. That's why it's kind of dark.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we'll kind of kick it off into one of the last topics that we want to touch into before we maybe hit on a question here, if we've got enough time. And that's antique collection. It's been announced. Press release came out. All three of you had something to say about it. For anybody that doesn't know, all of us, we're on some private chat on Twitter, and we're always going back and forth. And then these guys are spilling out math equations like back and forth to one another. And I'm like, guys, go figure it out on somebody else's thread, because how many bottles are in the barrel is interesting, but man, you guys are going some crazy math. So Nick, I'll push it over to you, because I think you might have been the first one to kind of release the bottle count. So kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the bottle count this year in overall, it's up about a little over 30% by comparison with last year. Everything is up except for Sazerac 18, which quite possibly might be the one that everyone was kind of wishing would be up. Being the first new batch, I'm sure everybody wants to try it. One thing that's being talked about right now is people's guesses as to how much this year's Sazerac 18 is going to be going for on the secondary market. But kind of thinking about trying to find Buffalo Trace Antique Collection over the past 3 or 4 years, it's really been much more difficult. In fact, maybe Pappy's been easier to find, but Buffalo Trace Antique Collection really is out there. People know about it. People that maybe aren't even that interested, they just know it's something of value, so they're getting on the list, they're going after it. Of course, that causes, us all to kind of get stressed about it and so forth, because you want to get it, you want to open it, you want to drink it, but part of that, and maybe an unpopular opinion, something I've kind of thought about, is this idea of the crazy popularity of brands like this and what that does for the community as a whole, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. And part of me actually thinks it's been a good thing. It gets a lot of people involved, interested, and excited about bourbon, maybe pulls them in, and then once they're in, they realize there's plenty of other good bourbons out there, besides ones like Antique Collection, for example. But I think it's one of those bourbons that are one of those groups of whiskey that people kind of maybe hear about first and draws them into to the experience.
I think before the next person goes, I want to pose a question to the viewers, which is there a particular bottle you're really gunning for this year? And then also, what's your favorite bottle of the antique collection? And if you haven't ever had the antique collection, then welcome to the chase.
Just to interject real quick on the SAS 18, I think of the 5 bottles, that's the one that everybody's most interested in this year, because like he was saying, this is the first year since 2003, I think, that it's brand new product, because they had it tanked for a long time. So I think a lot of people are also interested to find out how it is. I actually will know tomorrow how it is. I'm going to get a sample of it and try it, put up a review. And also there's only 2,500 bottles, so it's a very, very, very small release compared to William LaRue Weller, I think, which is the largest this year, right? I think it's at 13,000 bottles, which is it's pretty high for that.
That's the first time it's been
that high up. Yeah, so it should be obtainable, and so hopefully it'll be interesting to see, and hopefully people who have built relationships with stores will at least be able to land one of those bottles with a higher count this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching the comments flow through. It looks like this is the key question to ask, because I've seen people saying Stag hands down, and then somebody said Eagle Rare 17 has been my unicorn, and a lot of people are saying SAS would be great, but it's just not going to happen for the majority of people. So Blake, I'll kind of kick it over to you. Kind of talk about you're going to have the release map again, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that'll probably go out hopefully this week. I just got to get a couple other things. I was trying to do a big giveaway around it, but I'm not sure if that's going to work out. But still going to do the release map. That's always a fun one. The point of it is to help people find it. And obviously, I know not everybody is going to find a bottle, but that seems to get a little more pushback sometimes. But hopefully, it helps people find bottles. And like I always say each year with these releases, just because the map and state doesn't mean your area has gotten it. So like for me, I know if Florida gets it, it's going to hit Miami first, and a week or so later, Jacksonville is going to get it. So I'm waiting to see when Miami is, so then I really know when I need to start looking at stores and everything. And that may be given away for too much information if anybody else is here from Florida.
Yeah, so just to interject real quick, everyone in Atlanta, when Bourbon R reports that Antique is in Georgia, it's 2 more weeks till it hits Atlanta. So don't even start running around the city.
Officially, Kerry gives me a free bottle, and I don't put Georgia up until at least 3 weeks after he's got his first bottle. It's a big conspiracy.
This is the bottle he gets, and he loves it a lot.
He loves his Ploto, right?
Which the bottle count's a funny thing. I was talking to a guy from Buffalo Trace, and I said, looks like the Weller had a really big bottle count this year. He goes, well, that we don't release that information. I'm like, okay, but you give the barrel amount, you give the evaporation numbers. It's just simple math. I mean,
right.
Breaking Bourbon, they did it in like 45 seconds of the press release going out. So that's not pretending.
Yeah, but they have 3 guys. That's not fair. Like they signed each guy to a different.
I was still trying to put numbers into my spreadsheet.
No work got done that day.
They had
for that.
Yeah, this beautiful design thing out.
Ration percentage and the number of barrels, but we're not going to tell you how many bottles we have.
This gentleman just said he's going to be stalking when it hits Miami. He's another Jacksonville guy. So now I'm definitely keeping it off.
I gotta say though, I would just real quick on just compared to Antique Collection, I would say there's another distillery, another company probably will be talked about just as much this fall as Buffalo Trace. I won't say any names, but I think there are a lot of products coming out of one company this fall that might give Buffalo Trace a run for their money.
Is it a 24-year-old bourbon, or is it?
That could be one of theirs.
Okay.
Among other things.
All right. Are we going to talk about that? I mean, I feel like that's kind of an interesting release because I've seen a little bit of controversy on, some people just saying, oh, who cares? It's just over-oaked Elijah Craig 23 year. But the reviews I've seen so far have been really good. So I don't know. I feel like that could be a polarizing release.
We'll talk about it for a minute. Yeah, let's kind of touch on it.
They've got a lot of products coming out. I think they've got I don't know if you guys saw the new Heaven Hill Select stock, which is has very old barrels in it. They've got their Parker's Heritage 10.
Pre-fire one?
Yeah, the pre-fire barrels. Okay. They've got the Parker's Heritage 10. I think there's another batch of the Heaven Hills, the 15-year stuff coming out. They have another Elijah Craig 21 release this fall, another Elijah Craig 18 release this fall, and you're going to start seeing the private barrel Elijah Craigs hitting stores. So they've got a lot of product coming out this fall.
Well, they have a lot of product in general.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but they're releasing a lot of stuff. It'll be good to see.
That's what I'm interested to see, what the PHC 10, what the bottle level will be like that this year.
I have one piece. I have one little insider information that they produced They produced actually several batches, but a couple of them they couldn't release. So they only they weren't good. So they have 2 batches. So it's going to be a lot less than last year's Parker's release.
And actually, you'll see like on the bottle, there's actually 2 different releases, and that's what people are already trying to trade 1 for 1 right now, so they can actually have both of them.
They dumped more than that, but they couldn't use it all.
Right.
Yeah, there's been a divergence in the releases. I think it was the wheat with the 2 different batches that there was a lot of discussion about variation from batch to batch. But if it's anything, I was a big fan of the Promise of Hope, which is arguably very similar, to Henry McKenna 10-year. But the flip side of that is single barrel selection, and the barrel selection for this upcoming release. We can only hope that it's going to be, some of the best.
I think that, not to go off tangent a little bit here, but I think that the more we get, the more fans of bourbon, the more people involved in the hobby, the more people that express interest in it, the more I think these companies are releasing products, which is, it's good and it's bad. It's bad for the long-term bourbon people in the terms of we've now got to fight. We've got so much more competition. But, I mean, between now and November, how many releases are we? Is this like the most number of releases that we're going to have in a 2-month period since, bourbon has been a hobby for us?
I just know I probably need to go ahead and just get another credit card because I'm going to max out one.
Yeah. Just get a home equity loan and you're set for the fall. And
hey Nick, do you count the number of different releases?
No, I don't know a count offhand, but we do archive and they're available. It's something we could look at and pull the numbers from previous years. We archive all the release calendars and they're available right on the current page, actually by link. So some we could look at. But to that point, and I think that was that I kind of piggybacking off that idea that I was thinking of earlier about, bringing people into bourbon, and kind of the more the merrier. Yeah, you're right. It's going to be harder to get certain things, but if the consumers are there to buy and put their money towards these new and different things, then the producers and distillers are just going to be more likely. They're going to have, the opportunity to bring new and different and better stuff to market and try different things.
So, guys, we are reaching the 32-minute mark right here. So anybody have any closing remarks? Because I'm just reading some of the comments here. Somebody said there's an Evan Williams 23 that's going to be coming out as well, so it's aged a year longer. Somebody's just not happy with the way Heaven Hill's handling age statements and price tags lately because they're basically charging $100, $200 more than what we had regularly been accustomed to, right? Because most of their products were around the $30 mark. Now they're easily creeping up to 40, 50, 60 just for basic Elijah Craig.
Looks like there's people already lined up at Heaven Hill based on this person here.
That's a true story.
This is actually your mobile unit right here, isn't it?
I thought about taking.
Now we know where Ryan is.
It's a drop-down screen that just looks like his office.
I contemplated taking this from the car ride, but
favorite 2016 release so far? Anyone have thoughts on that?
Old Forester Birthday Bourbon is really good this year.
Okay, I haven't had it.
OFBB is really tasty. Yeah,
I was going to go with Foolproof just because it's $43, and I thought that was really good.
I found some for 27.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
Wow.
that's a good deal.
You guys have it too easy there outside of Kentucky. That's for sure.
Yeah, we do.
It's all shelf with like 6 lined up, which was nice, but
Had a Heaven Hill select stock that, in fact, Jordan reviewed on our website, but that really surprised me. It's a $150 bottle, but
Was that the cognac finish?
yeah, my experience has been the higher price. I've been kind of disappointed with a lot of releases lately, and so I was expecting disappointment. In fact, it was a really unique tasting and really good.
Yeah, I agree with 1792 Full Proof until I had Old Forester birthday, but it's a good. And actually, one I just had was the Old Forester Prohibition that just came out. It's 115 proof. It's a really good pour for $36.
Seems like as the proof go up on those, they get better.
Yeah, interestingly, the price goes down as the proof goes up, which go figure.
Yeah,
Brown-Forman has enough. They can just throw out whatever they want.
Yeah, right.
I'll look at Nick to be able to do that math for us. All right. Well, guys, let's wrap it up. So I want to say thank you again that's a wrap for this community podcast. We had 49, I think, at the highest amount of viewers. So we damn near reached 50, right? So congrats, guys. This was very fun. Thank you for everybody that joined in and were asking questions and being a part of this. This has been a really fun experiment, and I hope we can keep this going because it gives everybody a chance to kind of be a part of this. And I hope the listeners that are catching this on the podcast in their car right now will be wanting to tune in next time. So guys, just wrap it up one more time. Tell you who you are and where they can learn more about you, your blog, and all that good stuff.
Kerry, on Twitter, follow Bourbon_gamer, and on Facebook, look for Suburbia, SUBOURBIA, and follow and like me there.
I'll go next. Bourboner.com. We'll have the antique collections and Pappy release maps again this year. So be on the lookout for that, and feel free to send in your leads whenever you find it in your state, and we'll get it up.
And breakingbourbon.com. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Breaking Bourbon. And you can visit the site for release calendar, articles, and reviews.
Awesome.
Hey Blake. Yeah. Are you not Bourbon R? You're Bourboner.
The E is silent. Yeah. It's a silent.
Okay. So here's the thing. It's Bourboner, but bourbon with an E in there was taken, and it could also be mispronounced as bourboner.com. I had the opportunity to get that URL, and then I'm like, no, I'm just going to leave it with just the R. So
it's working.
Tried to make up a story about what the R was. My last name starts with an R, but I'm like, it was just Bourboner, and I just didn't want the E in. I didn't want to be the Bourboner the rest of this time. So.
The Web 2.0 bourbon.
Yeah, exactly.
Bourboner. That's a good story.
Awesome. So everybody follow them online. Follow us as well at Bourbon Pursuit, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as well. Make sure you support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. We've got all kinds of good swag. We appreciate everybody that has been supporting us. And with that, till next week.
This podcast of Bourbon Pursuit is in partnership with thewhiskeywash.com, a lifestyle website for news and reviews for people who like whiskey, and for those who think a life without whiskey has no style. Thewhiskeywash.com.
From the farm to the winner's circle and every step in between, ownership in the Sport of Kings is no longer for just the elite. It's for you. FinalFurlongRacingStable.com can and will make your involvement in the most exciting sport in the world a reality. Visit FinalFurlongRacingStable.com now and live the dream for real. Partner and be directly involved in all aspects of a horse's career. Specializing in New York bred horses and with over 25 years of thoroughbred racing experience, the Final Furlong team wants to partner with you. Yes, you. Visit the website FinalFurlongRacingStable.com and find out more now. Champions are crowned in the final furlong. FinalFurlongRacingStable.com.